Lieutenant Hannah Park stared at the holographic message floating above her desk. She read it 3 times to make sure she wasn't seeing things. The blue light from the display lit up her small office aboard the Earth Defense Force ship Relentless as she leaned back in her chair. "They want us to do what?" she said to the empty room. The message was clear, even if it seemed unbelievable. Every alien race in the Galactic Council had failed their mission to make contact with a newly discovered species. Now they were asking humans, the newcomers, the Deathworlders, as they called them, to try. Hannah ran her fingers through her short black hair and smiled. Most alien species looked down on humans because Earth was considered too dangerous, too harsh. They called it a death world because of its high gravity, extreme weather, and dangerous wildlife. But now they needed that strength they usually mocked. A soft beep came from her door. "Come in," she called out. Captain James Wilson walked in, his heavy boots making solid thuds on the metal floor. "I guess you've read the briefing?" he asked, pointing at the hologram. "Yes, sir." Hannah stood up straight, though I'm having trouble believing it. The captain laughed. "The mighty Galactic Council, with all their advanced technology, can't handle one primitive species, and now they're asking us for help." He shook his head. "The irony isn't lost on me." Hannah pulled up more details on the holographic display. The species they needed to contact lived on a planet called Vraxia. The images showed a world wrapped in constant storms, with gravity even stronger than Earth's. "No wonder the other aliens failed," she said. "They can barely walk around on Earth. This planet would crush them." "Exactly." Captain Wilson nodded. "That's why you're getting this mission, Lieutenant Park. Your record in extreme environment training is the best in the fleet." Hannah felt pride swell in her chest, but she kept her face professional. "Thank you, sir. But why have all the contact attempts failed? There must be more to it than just the planet's conditions." The captain tapped the hologram, bringing up another report. "The Council says the species is too aggressive, too primitive. They've rejected all diplomatic approaches. Some diplomats even got injured trying to make contact." "With all due respect, sir," Hannah said, "maybe the problem isn't with the species. Maybe it's with how the Council is trying to approach them." "My thoughts exactly." The captain smiled. "That's why I want you to handle this differently. Forget the Council's standard first contact protocols. Use your judgment. Show them what humans can do." Hannah started making notes on her tablet. "I'll need a team. Dr. Joy Kim from Xenobiology. She's the best at understanding new species. And Sam Lee from Cultural Studies." "Approved," the captain said quickly. "You leave in 48 hours. The Council is sending a representative to observe, but you're in charge of the mission." As the captain turned to leave, he stopped at the door. "Lieutenant, the Council thinks this is impossible. They're only asking us because they've run out of options. Show them what a human Deathworlder can do." After he left, Hannah stood looking at the images of Vraxia. Most people would see a hostile, dangerous world. She saw a challenge, an opportunity to prove what humans could do. Maybe being from a death world wasn't such a bad thing after all. She pressed a button on her desk. "Dr. Kim, Sam Lee, please report to my office. We have an impossible mission to plan." The hologram cast strange shadows on the wall as Hannah began preparing for what might be the craziest mission of her career. But she was smiling. Sometimes the impossible missions were the most fun. Dr. Joy Kim walked into the ship's main conference room carrying 3 large data tablets. Her steps were quick and excited as she approached the table where Hannah and Sam Lee were already waiting. The room's lights automatically brightened as she spread the tablets out on the table. "You're not going to believe what I found," Joy said, her eyes bright with discovery. She tapped one of the tablets, and a 3D model of planet Vraxia appeared above the table. Sam Lee leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "That doesn't look so bad," he said, studying the swirling storms that covered the planet's surface. "Oh, it's bad," Joy replied. "But not for us." She pressed another button, and numbers appeared next to the planet. Gravity is 1.3 times Earth normal. The air has more oxygen than Earth, and the atmospheric pressure is higher. The storms are constant, and they're full of electrical energy. Hannah nodded slowly. No wonder the other aliens couldn't handle it. But for us, it's just like climbing a mountain in bad weather. Joy finished. Tough, but definitely not impossible. Sam pulled up his own data on one of the tablets. I've been studying the failed contact attempts, he said. Every single alien species tried to meet the Vraxians the same way, by landing big ships full of diplomats in fancy clothes, trying to look impressive. And how did that work out? Hannah asked, though she already knew the answer. Badly. Sam showed them videos of previous attempts. They watched as tall, thin alien diplomats struggled to walk in the high gravity, their expensive clothes getting ruined by the harsh weather. The Vraxians didn't attack them, exactly, but they didn't help them either. They just watched as the diplomats failed to handle their world. Joy pointed to something in the videos. Look at the Vraxians' buildings. See how they're built. They're not primitive at all. Those structures are perfectly designed for their environment. The team studied the images. The Vraxian buildings were low and strong, with smooth surfaces that let the constant storms flow around them. They were built into the ground and used the planet's natural materials. They're not primitive, Hannah said firmly. They're adapted, just like we are. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Adapted? Is that what you call it? They turned to see Ambassador Tella from the Galactic Council entering the room. The alien was tall and thin, like most council species, and moved carefully in Earth's gravity. Their silver skin reflected the room's lights as they walked slowly to the table. Ambassador, Hannah said politely, we were just reviewing our mission plans. Yes, your unusual approach. Tella looked at their equipment laid out on another table. Instead of diplomatic robes, they had packed tough environmental suits, climbing gear, and survival equipment. You really plan to go down there dressed like explorers rather than diplomats. Sam smiled. On Earth, we have a saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. The ambassador looked confused. I don't understand the reference. It means we'll show respect by adapting to their way of life, Hannah explained, not expecting them to adapt to ours. Joy added more data to the hologram. We've designed these suits to handle the conditions while still allowing us to move normally. We'll be able to walk, run, and climb just like we do on Earth. And you think that will impress them? Tella asked doubtfully. No, Hannah said. We think it will show them respect. They've built an entire civilization in conditions that the rest of the galaxy finds impossible. We're not going to pretend that's not impressive. The ambassador was quiet for a moment. Every other species tried to show the Vraxians a better way to live. They said finally. That was their first mistake, Sam said. We're not going to show them a better way. We're going to learn their way. Hannah looked at her team, then at their gear. We leave in 12 hours. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we show the galaxy what humans can do. As they left the room, Ambassador Tella watched them with a mixture of doubt and curiosity. These humans were strange, but maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what this mission needed. The small landing ship shook as it entered Vraxia's atmosphere. Lightning flashed outside the windows, making Ambassador Tella nervous. But Hannah's team remained calm. They had trained for conditions like this on Earth's highest mountains during the worst storms. 5 minutes to landing, the ship's computer announced. Hannah checked her team's environmental suits one last time. They looked different from normal spacesuits. These were thinner, stronger, and allowed for better movement. Dr. Joy Kim had helped design them specially for Vraxia's conditions. Remember, Sam Lee said, looking at his data screen, the Vraxians will probably be watching us from the moment we land. First impressions matter. Through the ship's windows, they could see the surface of Vraxia getting closer. The ground was rocky and dark, with strange metal-like plants that bent but didn't break in the strong winds. Lightning jumped between tall rock formations, creating a constant light show. "It's beautiful," Joy said, pressing her hand against the window. Ambassador Tella looked at her like she was crazy. "Beautiful? It's terrifying." The ship landed with a soft thud. Outside, wind and rain beat against the hull. The team did one final check of their equipment. "Ambassador," Hannah said kindly, "you should stay in the ship until we signal that it's safe." Tella nodded quickly, clearly relieved. "Yes, that seems wise." The ship's door opened, and the full force of Vraxia hit them. The gravity pulled at their bodies, but thanks to their earthborn muscles and special suits, they could still move easily. The wind howled around them, but their suits kept them steady. Hannah stepped out first, her boots touching Vraxian soil. She felt the stronger gravity but didn't let it show in her movements. Behind her, Joy and Sam also moved smoothly, looking almost normal despite the harsh conditions. "Look," Sam pointed through the storm. About 100 meters away, they saw movement. Figures were watching them from behind some rock formations. The Vraxians were shorter than humans but wider, with thick, strong bodies perfect for their high-gravity world. Their skin looked like dark metal, and they had 4 arms, each ending in strong-looking hands. "They're waiting to see what we'll do," Joy said quietly through their helmet radios. "The other aliens usually call for help by now." Hannah nodded and started walking forward, not struggling, not crawling, but walking normally. Joy and Sam followed, matching her pace. Through the wind and rain, they heard sounds of surprise from the watching Praxians. Suddenly, a huge lightning bolt struck a rock formation near them. Ambassador Tella screamed from inside the ship, but Hannah's team didn't even flinch. They had seen worse storms in the Rockies during their training. That seemed to get the Vraxians' attention. A group of them emerged from their hiding spots and started walking toward the humans. They moved smoothly, their metal-like skin reflecting the lightning flashes. The two groups met in the middle of the open ground. Up close, the Vraxians were impressive. Their eyes glowed slightly, and patterns of light moved under their skin. One Vraxian stepped forward. They were bigger than the others, with more complex light patterns on their skin. When they spoke, their words were translated by the team's computers. "You walk in our storms as if they were gentle breezes." Hannah bowed her head slightly. "We come from a world that has taught us to respect, but not fear the power of nature." The Vraxian leader studied them for a moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, they made a sound that the translators said was laughter. Finally, the leader said, "Visitors who don't need to be rescued, I am Chief Krata. Welcome to Vraxia, people of the storms." From inside the ship, Ambassador Tella watched in amazement. In just 5 minutes, these humans had accomplished more than all previous diplomatic missions combined. And they had done it simply by being themselves, creatures from a world that had made them strong enough to stand tall in any storm. Inside the Vraxian meeting hall, Dr. Joy Kim watched with growing excitement as Chief Krata showed them around. The building was amazing. It used the planet's natural energy to power everything. Lightning from the storms was captured by tall metal rods and stored in crystal-like batteries. "Your technology is incredible," Joy said, making notes on her tablet. "You don't fight against the storms. You work with them." Chief Krata's skin patterns glowed brighter, which they had learned meant pleasure. "You are the first visitors to notice this. The others only saw danger in our storms." Sanli was studying the hall's walls, which were covered in marks that looked like scratches. His eyes widened as he realized something. "These aren't random marks," he said suddenly. "They're writing." "Yes," Krata said. "We record our history here, in the walls that shelter us. Each mark is a story of our people." Hannah noticed something else. Every few minutes, a Vraxian would approach another with what looked like aggressive movements. But instead of fighting, they would touch arms and continue normally. She watched this happen several times. "Chief Krata," she asked carefully, "those movements your people are making, Is that a greeting? The chief's eyes brightened. You see much, Stormwalker. Yes, it is our way of showing respect. We show our strength to honor each other's strength. Ambassador Tella, who had finally left the ship when they entered the building, looked shocked. But that's why the other diplomats left. They thought they were being threatened. Joy couldn't help laughing. No wonder all the previous missions failed. They didn't understand that what looks aggressive to them is actually polite here. A young Vraxian approached their group, making the same strong movements. Without hesitation, Hannah stepped forward and copied the gesture. The Vraxian's skin lit up with happy patterns, and the other Vraxians in the room made sounds of approval. The last visitors ran away when we tried to greet them, Chief Krata said, or they fell down because of our gravity. You not only stand tall, you understand. Sam was writing quickly on his tablet. It makes perfect sense, he said. In a high-gravity world with constant storms, showing physical strength would be an important part of the culture. It's like a handshake on Earth, a way to show you trust each other. Suddenly, warning sounds filled the air. The storm outside was getting stronger. A great storm comes, Chief Krata announced. We must move to the shelter levels. But Hannah had an idea. Chief, with your permission, I'd like to watch the storm from the surface. In our environmental suits, we should be safe. The Vraxians all stared at her. Even her team looked surprised. Hannah, Ambassador Tella said nervously, that's extremely dangerous. The storms are part of Vraxian life, Hannah said firmly. How can we understand their culture if we hide from what shapes it? Chief Krata studied her for a long moment. Then they made a gesture, and a door opened, leading to an observation platform. Go, Stormwalker, they said. Show us you truly understand our world. As Hannah walked to the platform, Joy and Sam joined her without hesitation. Together, they stepped out into the storm. The wind was stronger now, and lightning filled the sky with light. But they stood firm, watching the display of natural power. Through the windows, the Vraxians watched them with growing respect. Here, finally, were visitors who didn't just survive their world. They embraced it. Ambassador Tella watched too, finally understanding why humans had succeeded where others had failed. It wasn't just their physical strength. It was their willingness to understand and adapt to new ways of thinking. The storm raged on, but on that platform, a new kind of diplomacy was being born. After the great storm passed, Chief Krata called a meeting in the main hall. All the important Vraxian leaders were there, their skin patterns glowing in different colors. The human team sat at a round table with them, while Ambassador Tella watched nervously from a corner. Stormwalkers, Chief Krata began, you have shown unusual understanding of our ways. But to create a true bond between our peoples, there is one more thing you must do. Hannah sat up straighter. What would you ask of us, Chief Krata? The chief pressed a button on the table, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed a mountain range far from the city, where the storms were even stronger. The trials of worth, Krata said. Every Vraxian must pass them to be considered an adult. All who wish to make agreements with us must also pass them. Ambassador Tella stepped forward quickly. Surely you don't expect diplomats to take part in dangerous physical trials. That is exactly why no agreements have been made, another Vraxian leader said. How can we trust those who won't face our world as we do? Joy studied the hologram carefully. What exactly are these trials? Chief Krata pointed to different parts of the mountain range. You must travel through the storm heart, the place where the strongest storms gather. You must find 3 temples, each one higher than the last. In each temple, you must solve the challenges inside while surviving the storms outside. Sam was taking notes, looking excited instead of scared. This reminds me of ancient Earth traditions. Many cultures had similar trials to prove worth and build trust. The other diplomats called us primitive for keeping these traditions, a young Vraxian said angrily. They said we should change our ways. Hannah stood up. They were wrong. Traditions that have helped your people survive and thrive on this world deserve respect. not judgment. The Vraxian leader's skin patterns glowed brighter at her words. But Hana, Ambassador Tella said, the council won't approve of this. It's too dangerous. Too uncivilized. With all due respect, Ambassador, Hana replied, maybe it's time for the council to learn that their way isn't the only way to be civilized. She turned to Chief Krata. We accept your challenge. The room burst into surprised sounds. Even some of the Vraxian leaders hadn't expected them to agree so quickly. You understand the risks? Chief Krata asked. The storms in the Stormheart are 3 times stronger than what you've seen. Many Vraxians fail these trials. Joy stepped forward to stand beside Hana. We understand. But on Earth, we have a saying. Nothing worth doing is ever easy. Sam joined them. Besides, humans have been climbing mountains in storms since before we had modern technology. This is just another mountain. Chief Krata's skin showed patterns they hadn't seen before, deep respect mixed with surprise. You will have 3 days to prepare. We will provide maps and information about the temples. The rest will be up to you. As they left the meeting hall, Ambassador Tella hurried after them. This is madness. No other species has ever agreed to take the trials. The council will be furious. Hana smiled. Good. Maybe it's time for the council to learn that humanity doesn't always follow their rulebook. Back in their temporary quarters, the team started planning. They had maps to study, equipment to prepare, and only 3 days to get ready. You know what's funny? Sam said as they worked. If they had told the other diplomats these were intelligence tests instead of physical trials, they probably would have agreed. That's because the council thinks brain and body are separate things, Joy replied. They never understood that true wisdom means using both together. Hana looked at the storm outside their window. In 3 days, they would face even bigger ones, but she wasn't worried. After all, they were humans. They had been facing impossible challenges since they first looked up at the stars and decided to reach them. The wind howled around Hana as she climbed the rocky path to the first temple. Joy and Sam followed close behind, their environmental suits covered in rain and dust. The gravity felt even stronger here in the mountains, but their earth-trained muscles held up well. Lightning struck a nearby rock, sending pieces flying everywhere. The team didn't even flinch anymore. They'd been climbing for 6 hours through storms like this. First temple ahead, Sam called through the radio in their helmets. Through the rain and lightning, they could see a building carved into the mountain. It looked ancient but still strong, with the same metal-like material they'd seen in the city. Back in the Vraxian city, Ambassador Tella and the Vraxian leaders watched their progress through cameras built into their suits. The ambassador couldn't believe what they were seeing. They're actually doing it, Tella whispered. They're really doing it. The team reached the temple entrance. The door had strange markings on it, glowing with energy from the storms. It's a puzzle, Joy said, studying the marks. The storm energy has to flow through these lines in the right pattern. Sam looked at the sky. The lightning strikes aren't random here. They're following a pattern too. Hana watched the lightning carefully. The temple isn't just testing our strength. It's testing if we can understand how the storms work. Working together, they redirected the energy flow using their suits' power systems. The door opened with a low rumble. Inside, they found more tests. They had to cross rooms where gravity changed suddenly, solve puzzles that use storm energy, and show both physical strength and quick thinking. The second temple will be higher up, Hana said as they finished the first set of trials. The storms will be stronger there. They climbed higher into the mountains. The wind got stronger, and the lightning strikes came more often. But the team kept moving, using their Earth survival training to handle the conditions. At the second temple, they faced harder challenges. The gravity shifted more extremely, and the puzzles were more complex. But again, they worked together and succeeded. Final temple ahead. Joy shouted over the storm's roar. But something's different. The storm around the third temple was unlike anything they'd seen. Lightning filled the sky completely, and the wind was strong enough to move rocks. In the city, Chief Krata watched with growing respect. "Now we will see if they are truly worthy," they said. The storm heart itself guards the final temple. The team studied the situation carefully. The temple sat at the very top of the mountain, surrounded by the worst of the storm. "Look at the lightning pattern," Sam said suddenly. "It's creating a path." Hannah saw it too. The lightning wasn't random. It was forming a safe route through the storm, if you were smart enough to see it. The storm isn't just a challenge, Joy realized. It's showing us the way. Just like the Vraxians said, they work with the storms, not against them. Together, they made their way up, following the pattern in the lightning. When they finally reached the temple entrance, even the Vraxian leaders watching were impressed. Inside the final temple, they found the hardest challenge yet. But now they understood. Each test wasn't just about surviving the storms, but understanding them. All this time, Hannah said as they worked, other species thought the Vraxians were primitive because they lived in the storms. They never realized that living with the storms made them advanced in a different way. As they completed the final trial, a message appeared on the temple wall in glowing letters. "Those who respect the storm's power earn the right to share its wisdom." Back in the city, Chief Krata's skin patterns glowed with joy. They have done it. They truly understand. Ambassador Tella sat in shocked silence. These humans had just done what the entire Galactic Council had failed to do for years. And they had done it not by fighting against Vraxian ways, but by understanding them. The return journey to the Vraxian city was much easier than the climb up. The storms seemed calmer now, almost like they were helping the team descend. Sam noticed this first as they made their way down the mountain. "The storms aren't fighting us anymore," he said through the radio. "It's like they recognize us now." Joy checked her instruments. "The energy patterns are different. They're flowing around us instead of trying to hit us." When they reached the city, they found all the Vraxians waiting for them outside, despite the weather. Chief Krata stood at the front, their skin glowing with the brightest patterns the team had ever seen. "Welcome back, Stormwalkers," the chief said. "Or should I say, Storm Friends?" As the team removed their helmets, the Vraxians made sounds of approval. Even Ambassador Tella looked impressed, though still a bit nervous about being outside. Inside the main hall, Sam was looking at his notes when something caught his eye. "Chief Krata," he said suddenly, "the marks on your skin. They're similar to the patterns we saw in the lightning during the trials." The chief's patterns glowed brighter. "Yes, you see what others missed. We learned from the storms, made ourselves part of their dance. The patterns tell our stories, just like the lightning tells the story of the sky." Joy opened her tablet and showed some readings she had taken. "The energy in your bodies. You've adapted to handle the same kind of energy as the storms. That's why the other species failed," Hannah realized. They saw the storms as something to defeat. They never understood that the Vraxians had become one with their world's power. Ambassador Tella stepped forward. "But the Council always said advanced civilizations should control nature, not submit to it." A young Vraxian laughed. "Submit? We don't submit to the storms. We dance with them. Have you ever tried to dance with someone by controlling them?" Sam smiled wide. "That reminds me of something from Earth's history. Many of our ancient cultures believed in working with nature instead of fighting it. They saw themselves as part of the world, not its master." "Yes," Chief Krata pointed at Sam excitedly. "That is what we wanted others to understand. True strength isn't about controlling everything around you. It's about learning to move with the forces of nature, not against them." Hannah nodded. "On Earth, we learned that lesson the hard way. We tried to fight nature for a long time before we realized we needed to work with it." "Perhaps," the chief said thoughtfully, "that is why you succeeded where others failed. You remember both paths, the path of control and the path of harmony. You understand both sides. Ambassador Tella was typing quickly on their own tablet. The council needs to hear this. They've been wrong about the Vraxians all along. They're not primitive. They've just chosen a different kind of advancement. Different doesn't mean primitive, Joy said firmly. Sometimes it means finding a better way that others haven't thought of yet. The Vraxian leaders gathered around a large table, their skin patterns creating beautiful light shows on the ceiling. They began discussing plans for sharing their knowledge with Earth. Your people understand storms, Chief Kratos said to Hana. We can teach you to understand them better. And perhaps you can teach us about your world too. As they talked, more Vraxians entered the hall, each adding their light patterns to the display above. The humans watched in amazement as the patterns began to match the rhythm of the storms outside. Look, Sam whispered to his teammates. They're not just surviving here. They've turned survival into an art. Through the windows, they could see the constant storms of Vraxia, but now they saw them differently. What had seemed like chaos was actually a dance, a powerful, endless dance that the Vraxians had learned to join. And now, thanks to their willingness to understand rather than judge, humanity would learn to dance too. 1 month after the trials, the main hall of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from every spacefaring species. They had all come to witness something unprecedented, the signing of the first official alliance between Vraxia and the wider galaxy. Hana, Joy, and Sam stood with Chief Krata and other Vraxian leaders on the speaking platform. The human team wore special formal suits designed to show respect for both cultures. Earth military dress combined with patterns that mimicked Vraxian light displays. This is impossible, one council member whispered. How did these Deathworlders succeed where we all failed? Ambassador Tella, who had changed much since their time on Vraxia, stood up to speak. Fellow council members, I have learned that what we call impossible is often simply something we haven't tried to understand. The ambassador touched a control panel, and images appeared in the air, pictures and videos from the human team's mission. The council members watched in amazement as they saw humans and Vraxians working together, solving problems and sharing knowledge. We thought the Vraxians were primitive because they chose to live with their storms instead of trying to control them, Tella continued. We were wrong. They had created something we couldn't even see, a way of life that turned nature's greatest challenges into their greatest strengths. Chief Kratos stepped forward, their skin patterns creating beautiful lights in the council chamber. Some council members flinched, but others watched with new interest. For too long, the chief said, you sent people to teach us your way of life. But these humans came to learn our way instead. That is the difference. Joy stood next to the chief and activated her tablet. The Vraxians have technology we never imagined. They can harvest energy from storms, create buildings that last forever, and heal using the power of their planet. They didn't need our help. We needed to learn from them. Sam added, on Earth, we have a saying. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. We succeeded because we opened our minds to new possibilities. The council chamber buzzed with excited talk. Many representatives were already asking about learning Vraxian technology and wisdom. But what about the dangerous conditions? Someone asked. Not everyone can survive on Vraxia. Hana smiled. That's why the Vraxians have also helped us design special training centers on Earth, places where other species can learn about their ways safely, at their own pace. Because real cooperation means finding ways to work together, not forcing everyone to do things the same way. Chief Kratos' patterns glowed with joy. And Earth will help us learn about other worlds too. We may be strong in storms, but there is much we can learn from those who dance with gentle breezes. The council voted unanimously to approve the alliance. As the agreement was signed, something unexpected happened. The Vraxian leaders began to glow in a pattern that matched the formal lights of the council chamber. The two different ways of communication had found harmony. Look at that, Sam said quietly to his teammates. Who would have thought our impossible mission would change the whole galaxy? Joy watched as council members eagerly approached the Vraxians to learn more. Sometimes the biggest obstacles aren't storms or gravity, she said. They're the limits we put on our own thinking. Hannah nodded, remembering their first step onto Vraxian soil. We succeeded because we remembered something important. Being strong doesn't always mean having the most power. Sometimes it means being willing to learn new dances. Outside the council chamber, Earth's sun shone bright and calm. But now, when people looked up at storm clouds, they didn't just see bad weather. They saw a reminder that somewhere out there, humans and Vraxians were dancing with the lightning, showing the galaxy that the impossible was possible if you just looked at it the right way. After all, that's what humans do best. They adapt, they learn, and they show the universe that there's always another way to reach the stars.